I'm going to be talking about piles today, and that may seem like a funny topic for video, but bear with me, I'll tell you why I'm doing that. I'm Margaret, I'm a virtual organizer, and my job and my passion is to help people all over the United States declutter, get organized, and get out of bondage to stuff and chaos causing stress and strife in life. So, piles are a big part of my job. One aspect of piles is people often call me in to work for them because they have piles. There are two types of piles typically, dynamic piles and static piles. Dynamic piles are, for the most part, okay. Those are the piles of things that you have because you're actively working on a project or you're going to need something pretty soon. People that are visual tend to have many, many more dynamic piles, and that's okay. You may be a person that doesn't appreciate that and your spouse does. That might be an area you just have to kind of compromise because that visual person needs to see things. But if they're actively working with them, maybe you can cut them some slack. Now, static piles are a different story. Static piles are those piles that have been there so long that you can blow dust off of them. You're almost forgetting that you're tripping over them every time you walk through the room, and they're just not moving. They become invisible, in effect. Static piles we don't want. They're just things that we haven't dealt with, and it's time to do that. Okay, so now you're working on your own or you're working with me as a virtual organizer, and you've got piles. What about piles? Well, piles are good. I often say you have to make a mess to clean up the mess, but you don't want to leave the piles there. So let's say that we're doing a project and we're working in the closet in your bedroom. Best thing to do is clear out that closet. Take everything out, and I often like to use the bed. You can use the floor, but I like the bed if at all possible. Sometimes if you have a lot of stuff, you have to use both. Put all the like things together, all the blouses together, all the jeans together, all the t-shirts together. That's going to help you figure out how many you have of each. You can start, getting rid of things because, like, I don't need that many t-shirts, and you start getting rid of them. So I'm going to leave that. There's a little bit more to it, but for now, for this video, we're talking about piles. That's enough. You now have a bed and maybe the floor piled with things. We can't leave it like that. So what I recommend is whatever time you have that you're going to be organizing, or decluttering, I should say, make sure that 2/3 of it is pulling things out and putting them in piles, and 1/3 of the time is left to put away the piles. So what happens to the piles? Well, some is probably going to go to be donated. Some is probably going to be put back in the closet. Some is going to be taken to another place in the house because it didn't belong in the closet. And some of it's just going to be trash. So 1/3 of your time, go ahead and put things away. When you're, the example that I used of dealing with a closet, a lot of times people have so many clothes that the piles are starting to kind of implode on each other. You don't actually have to get everything out of the closet. You can kind of stop and purge partway through so that your piles don't become mountains. I think you're kind of getting the idea that piles can be okay. They can be okay when they're dynamic because we're doing something with them. There's a plan, they're active. They can be okay when we're decluttering, because we're not going to leave them there. We're going to make sure that we leave 1/3 of the time to put them away. So I hope that helps you with just get a little bit of a taste of organizing and why piles can be good. Make a mess to clean up the mess, but they have their limits.